Hi, it's Dwyer, gamblersadvisory.com, dwyervip.com. Remember, the opinion you should follow should be your own. Just consider this video to be a second opinion from a complete stranger online. Now, yesterday I made a video where I was talking about Abel Sanchez's comments right after the Andre Ward-Sullivan-Barrera fight, where he was critical of Ward, right? He said that if that Ward showed up against Kovalev, that Ward would lose. Well, life is strange, right? Shortly after I made that video, boxingscene.com actually published updated comments from Abel Sanchez, right? Sanchez, of course, has been in the game a long time, has trained superstars well before meeting up with Golovkin, right? At one point, he trained Sergey Kovalev. He trained terrible Terry Norris, right? A Hall of Famer who beat Sugar Ray Leonard. You want to familiarize yourself with Terry Norris. The point is that simply, Abel Sanchez has been in the game a long time, training superstars, right? He's had his share of great fighters. And Sanchez, in his take, and I encourage you to go to boxingscene.com and look at the article, right, is questioning whether or not Andre Ward is fully prepared to fight Kovalev after his last two fights. Let's remember, Andre Ward had a shoulder problem. Right now, depending on the type of problem, some guys are able to train even with problems. Right? But Ward had surgery on his shoulder. It's possible that the shoulder prevented Ward from training. So even though Ward has an excellent trainer, Virgil Hunter, right, Ward may not have been able to have fully trained. The other problem, and you'll see it in another article on boxingscene.com that quotes Sergey Kovalev, is that Andre Ward is no longer fighting at 168 pounds. He's now in Kovalev's neighborhood, right? 175 pounds. There's a big difference, folks, right? Big difference. Kovalev feels that Ward is a visitor to the division, right? You know, the mindset of heavy punchers who feel they're naturally bigger than you, right? They're going to say, look, you got to be kidding. It's just like what Vladimir Klitschko said to David Haye, right? Haye, in a video that was popular here online a few years ago, tracks down Vladimir Klitschko in a mall. Klitschko turns around. Haye says, look, I want to fight you for the heavyweight title. Klitschko, in essence, looks at him and says, how much do you weigh? Right? Get into the mindset. Kovalev feels that Andre Ward, for all of his accomplishments, did so at 168 pounds and doesn't belong at 175 pounds. Right? Sanchez feels that Ward might not be at the top of his game right now, that it might take a few more fights, and he's fighting a dangerous puncher who, of course, is naturally in a higher weight class. Well, let me say this. Style-wise, what to expect? You know, the first round sometimes is a feeling out round. Right? Sometimes I watch a fight and I'll see guys just looking at each other in the first round. Right? Isn't that your typical Bernard Hopkins fight? Right? Where the boxers are just looking at each other. They're feeling the crowd. Right? They're, withdrawn. Right? I'm not sure if this fight gets going in the first round. Here's what I think I know from round 2 on. I'm expecting the puncher to actually not be the aggressor in the fight. Right? I'm expecting Andre Ward to have to come after Kovalev. I don't think you beat Kovalev fighting on your back foot. How did that work out for Gabe Campillo? I want you to look at that fight, right? If you're on your back foot against Sergey Kovalev, you're in trouble. You're either in trouble getting knocked out, like Campillo, or you're on your back foot defensively, trying to survive rounds, like Ike Chilemba. Right? What I haven't seen against Kovalev is some guy who's, let's say, like Ali against Liston, right? And that's a unique set of skills. Who's on his back foot trying to walk you into, right hands and stuff like that. Let's face it, guys with that skill set who could be offensive on their back foot are rare, right? Very rare. So, I'm expecting Andre to be on his front foot. Now, in boxing, and I've long said this, some of the most important people at the event are people we often overlook. For Andre Ward to get to Kovalev, he's going to have to get through layers, right? I'm just telling you, you're going to notice a second man, right? This almost sounds like the Kennedy assassination. You're going to notice a second man with John David Jackson in Kovalev's corner. Now that guy is Don Turner. People need to understand who Don Turner is. Don Turner himself has been a trainer to people like Evander Holyfield. Right? Don't just look at the fighters, look at the corners. Right? Kovalev's corner has 2 superstar trainers. Don Turner's forte is a jab. Now, one of the best parts of Kovalev's game is his spacing. He's the puncher who doesn't run across the ring and try to knock you out. That's not who he is. He's a hoverer. Right? There are times where Kovalev actually backs up as an opponent comes forward. Right? Kovalev doesn't dive in the water. He's the guy at the side of the pool thinking about diving in, waiting for the right opportunity. Now, if a guy tries to dive in on him, Don Turner and John David Jackson have given Kovalev a damn good jab. Right? It's not a placeholder jab. This isn't a Manny Pacquiao jab where something flashes that looks like a jab, but it's not going to bust you up. Right? No, Kovalev has a jab that can actually bust you up. We just don't notice it. Because Kovalev will land a few good jabs, then he takes you out. Right? Then he's taking you out with hooks. He's taking you out with power shots. That doesn't mean that the jab is not there. Right? So Kovalev likes to keep you at mid-range. Right? He doesn't want to be too close to you. He doesn't want you too close to him. He likes to be at mid-range. The key is that he has the jab to keep you at mid-range. Right? It's an important part of his game. He also has the legs and the balance. What I want you to do is to notice Kovalev's balance. You have some big hitters who throw big shots, and then they have to gather themselves. David Haye, right, can throw huge shots, but then has to recalibrate himself. Kovalev is the balanced guy who has power, is never off balance, right? Unless he comes in, when he's off balance, he goes down, right? The Caparillo fight is very important, right? But when he's at his best, he's balanced, operating behind a jab, right? You're going to notice his legs are constant. He's not moving them a lot. Keeps himself balanced. So the challenge for Andre Ward is going to be to get by the first level, to get by Kovalev's jab. Now let's go back in time to a fight history seems to have forgotten. Two Hall of Fame fighters. Roberto Duran, who, in my opinion, was the better technician in the ring. But he was fighting a guy with a damn good jab and a legendary right hand. He was fighting Thomas the Hitman Hearns. Folks, Duran never figures out how to get by Hitman's jab. Understand, Hitman was a guy who'd take you out in the first round, right? Hitman comes in, keeps him at bay with the jab, turns over right hands. Roberto Duran has never been beaten like that in his life, right? He falls face first to the canvas. That fight is a blowout. I doubt that they include that fight in this Roberto Duran movie, right? Here, Andre Ward has to get by Kovalev's jab, right? A lot of guys fighting Kovalev are trying to stay outside, trying to create openings. Kovalev's unbeaten. That hasn't worked, right? Andre Ward has an inside game Kovalev doesn't have. But to get there, he's going to have to go through Kovalev's jab. Folks, let me say, that's easier said than done. As you watch this fight early, just ask yourself, who's the aggressor? Right? In my opinion, if the answer to the first question is Kovalev, the fight is over. Right? I think Kovalev wins the fight if he's the aggressor. If the answer to the first question is Andre Ward, then the second question is, how's Andre getting by his jab? Is Andre getting inside? If Andre Ward gets inside on Kovalev, this could well become Ward-Allen Green. Right? Ward in an interview said the hardest puncher he's faced is Edison Miranda in that fight. And I want you to revisit that fight. There's a period in that fight where Andre Ward decides he's going to get inside. He gets inside. He stays inside. Edison Miranda didn't know what to do with him. Right? I'm not sure if Kovalev will know what to do with Ward if Ward gets inside. But before Ward does, he's going to have to get by the jab. Understand too, Edison Miranda, notoriously one-handed. Didn't have two hands. Here you have a guy who's two-handed. Right? He's two-handed. What I want people to do too is to notice that Kovalev is actually a boxer. Right? He has boxing skills. The problem with boxing highlights is when you have a guy with this level of punching power, the highlights are him running over guys, right? Guys in car crashes against him. A Kovalev opponent beaten up and falling down. You don't see what led to that. I'm just telling you, I've watched Kovalev fights where guys try to rush in on him. And Kovalev will put up an arm. He knows to put up an arm. Think about Kovalev's level of spacing. When is the last Kovalev fight where he's been up against the ropes? He's had his back up against the ropes for any period of time. Right? Kovalev knows how to be in the middle of the ring. He knows how to cut off the ring. Right? Nathan Cleverly, who has a share of the belt at light heavy, now wants to fight Kovalev. Should Kovalev beat Ward? Nathan, that's a bad idea. Right? Kovalev is now getting better and better. Right? He beat you up years ago. He's not the same fighter that he was years ago. Now, I know the Cleverly crowd is going to say, hey, we're not either. What I want that crowd to do is to look at the scorecards of Cleverly against Bramer. Tell me who was winning the early parts of that fight. That fight is an injury fight. Bramer has an injury, thinks his elbow's worse than it is. Right? Pulls the plug. That's not a fight of domination. So let me say this. For me, this fight comes down to one question. Can Andre Ward get inside? Right, that's the question. Right? Andre can't be on his back foot and beat this guy. Right? He has to get inside. He has to find a way to muscle him. Right? If he gets inside, we're going to be astonished. Astonished to actually see Kovalev getting roughed up. Because, quite frankly, we haven't seen that yet. Right? He's been on the canvas. But those have been of the one-punch variety. We haven't seen him take a sustained beating. Here's what I don't believe you're going to see. You remember Ali Foreman? The Rumble in the Jungle? The rope-a-doping, where Foreman punches himself out? It's not going to happen. Right? If Andre Ward is outside and he's trying to rope-a-dope Kovalev, Kovalev's just going to stand there and look at him. It'd be a bad visual for Andre Ward. Right? Because the boxing public is expecting action here. Right? They're going to punish the guy who looks like he's cowering, who looks like he's not fighting back. Right? 2016 is not 1974. Different time. Let me point out, too, Foreman and Kovalev at different points in their career. Right? Kovalev's in his 30s, folks. He's a grown man. He's not a young pup. He's not a young lion. He's an old lion. He's not going to punch himself out. Not going to happen. Right? Let me point out, too, that Kovalev, and I know he got tired against Ike Chilemba. I'll concede that. His last fight. Didn't look like he was in the best of shape. But let's assume that this is the biggest fight of Kovalev's career. It's pay-per-view. It's Vegas. Right? Let's assume that he's going to come in great shape. Kovalev in great shape can throw a level of punches that a guy relying on defense and grabbing won't be able to match. Look at the CompuBox numbers for Kovalev's match against Bernard Hopkins. So, in my opinion, that forecloses Andre fighting a defensive fight, a rope-a-dope fight from the outside. Right? I think Andre has to get inside. Now, you saw the movie, the last Rocky movie, Creed. Andre Ward's in that movie. I know it's fictional, trust me, I'm sure the scenes are choreographed. But they show an Andre Ward sparring session where he gets inside on a guy, puts a shoulder on a guy, right? Takes the last step and actually can lean on a guy while he's throwing punches. That's exactly the fight style he's going to have to use against Kovalev to win the fight. Right? Anything less, if he decides to fight mid-range, if he decides to fight long range, I think he's in trouble. He has to fight this like he fought Alan Green. We haven't seen the guy against Kovalev who actually puts a shoulder on him and leans on him. Right? But trust me, if the guys are outside, and I know the prevailing thought is that Ward is a much better boxer than Kovalev. Just understand, I want you to look into Kovalev's corner, look at the old black man with the mustache, right? He has a 70s era mustache. You know the way OGs do it? You're right? They're still clinging to a portion of the past because they think it's still hip, right? Look at the guy with the mustache in Kovalev's corner as Kovalev dusts off some excellent jabs while keeping his balance, right? I'm telling you, don't undersell. Don't overlook the value of Kovalev's jab. It's going to make it hard for Andre on the way in. Understand, the first level's the jab. If Andre slips the jab and isn't alert, the second level are Kovalev's devastating hooks. Devastating. Right? Kovalev is not going to wait, folks. Right? He understands. He doesn't want a wrestling match. He doesn't want a grappling match. So, against Bernard Hopkins, who's very much like Andre Ward, Kovalev let his hands go. That's what we need to expect in this fight. The question's going to be whether Andre can dampen that, back him up against the ropes, put a shoulder on his torso, go to work and keep him there. That's how I see it. Let me hear from you. I hope you leave your comments in the comment section to this video. This is a dangerous fight. Thanks for stopping by.